Welcome back, guys, to another beautiful Diabolos video. This time we'll talk about Diabolos Viamance Bruce. So this deck was able to get undefeated throughout the Bushroods Summerfest, and that's just insane. Going through our 6 or 7 rounds of the Swiss and being undefeated is just crazy. Being so unlucky, my teammates were unlucky to not win those important games to get into the top 8. It happens, but I'm very happy with how this deck performed. It's just insane. I did expect this deck to be this good. I played the Unrivaled so long that I didn't give this deck enough attention, but after Heinz came, I was like, yo, boy, girl, it's whatever Heinz is. It's time to cook. All right, so we will talk about the deck in depth. We'll talk about every skill. We'll talk about every other option you could add to the deck. And I think this is a very, very, very good video for you guys that really love Bruce to pick this deck up. Because believe me, this deck is way better than people think or give it credit. All right, let's start deck profile. Before this deck profile, we did 2 videos. The first video was I would say a setup deck profile where I first made the deck and I was like, I think this is the best way to play it. The second deck profile was a fast deck profile, and this deck profile, we will talk more about the other options you could put in the deck and stuff. All right, so for your right line, play Matt because he's a Diabolos. There are situations where you call him to the field in the later game, or you add him back to your hand or whatever, but being a Diabolos helps you with Viamance because Viamance needs all Diaboloses on the field to be able to activate his ability. So you could play anything else if you want to. It would not be smart, but if you want to take the gamble, go ahead. If you have a favorite starter that you want to play, go ahead. Do whatever you like. It doesn't really make that big of a difference, but there will come situations where it could make a difference. Then we have Diabolos Bad Steve. Steve is a card that starts the hate right away. His name is Bad Steve. The reason for that is that he's very bad for your opponent. The thing is that this deck has the pressure on your opponent right away from turn 1. If you go second, he will call this right away behind him, and this will be a 14 to the opponent. And then the next turn, you will ride into Richard, and the Richard will put Matt to the field, to the soul. You draw a card, and that's when your Orlando will come in, and the Orlando will make the 18k on the opponent. So you will keep on hitting those numbers. Your opponent cannot just put 15k on the field, and they will be like, OT to pass. There is no fucking OT to pass on this deck. There is just all the time want to pass, or just pass. So hit them with a crit in the early game and just put them on the 4 damage, the 3 damage, and just see them struggling with the cards in their hand that they really don't want to discard. But then again, this deck will be like, yo, just give me the card, just lose it, and then you hit Great Return and then they die. Or they don't die and then you hit the Persona right turn and then they die. So yeah, that's why Steve is very, very good. So whenever you ride into him, you could call Matt behind the Vanguard, and then you could soul charge 1. It's a very good ability, and it does help you to put the pressure very high. There is a few important things about it. The first one is you have to call Matt to the back center row, so you cannot call it here or there. It does make a difference because Orlando also wants to go behind the Vanguard. So few things that are important. Another thing is that you call the Matt, then you soul charge, so you cannot call whatever you soul charge if you want to do that. Then the second ability is if you're on Final Rush, he gets plus 5k. It's good. Make him a 13k attacker or a 13k booster. He does come in play a lot of times if you don't have your Heinz or any other good booster. Or he could also be an attacker. If you are on grade 3 and your opponent's on grade 2, then you have another attacker which is better because he makes a 15k, and that's Richard. When you ride into Richard, you put one card from your field to your soul, which will your mats, and then you draw a card. So he empty up your field of mats, and then comes Orlando in play, which costs you the 3 energies to call him back, which I'll show you in the game. And then again, the second ability is the plus 5k if you're on Final Rush, which makes him a better attacker if your opponent is a 10k. Otherwise, it doesn't make a difference. This will be the card that you will lose, or you will Soul Blast, or you will retire with your Orlando, and you will keep your Steve into your soul as long as you can, because in the late game, he could be very effective. And then we go into the ace of the deck, the captain, the quarterback, the whatever you want to call him, Brucey Boy. So Brucey Boy, and we play all variations of Bruce except the triple rare because of the same art, and I added this one as well to the deck. They are a little bit different. So Brucey Boy has the first ability, which is if your field is full of only Diabolosis units, at the start of the battle phase, you will get Final Rush. And if your opponent is on grade 3, you will get Final Burst. Final Rush and Final Burst are a state that you as a player get, so your opponent cannot just negate it or whatever. And that will enable some of your best skills in the deck. Then the second ability is when all of your unit again are Diabolosis, blah blah blah, so you enter Final Burst. If you're on the Final Burst, when this unit attacks, you counter +1, you choose a column, you stand all of the Regards with Diabolosis in the card name in that column, and they get plus 5k. The fun thing about this is even if you don't stand something that is already stood, like a Baccarat grade 3 or whatever, it could still get the 5k, because he doesn't say give the 5k to the unit that stood. He just says choose a column, stand the unit, and give them 5k. Of course, they need to be Regards. He could not restand himself. That would be insane, but yeah, that would have been fun, but no. Alright, so that is basically his ability. We talked about the flexibility of him. Enabling Final Rush is good, even if your opponent's not great. 3, because that will mean that your attacks will hit for higher, and some of your abilities will be active right away. What's the downside to him is that he doesn't give you Final Rush or Final Burst at the main phase, which means that you cannot play the Orders, you can not play Derek. There are a few cards that you could not play in this deck, and then that's just the way it is. So yeah, that's basically his ability. The Final Burst and the Final Rush will keep on going until the end of your opponent's turn, which means the cards that get shield will keep the shield. The cards that give power or have power will keep that. So yeah, that's important. This is one of the famous plays that they did even in the anime, is calling Stephanie behind the Bruce, and Stephanie will give a Diabolus unit in the same column as her the plus 5k, and she could give him the 5k even in your opponent's turn, which was pretty funny. Right, that's it. So that's it for the right line, and then again for the main deck, you will add 3 copies of Bruce because you want the Persona right, because this is a multi-attacking deck. Nothing to do here, nothing to take out, nothing to add in. So yeah, just the 3 Bruces. Then we have the Julian. You play him at 4. There is a reason why you play him at 4, because he is one of the combo enablers. And you play in a format where they could retire the front row very easy. So you could keep another copy in your hand, or you could try to put it into your soul that you could call it with a Jamil. Or if you have it in your deck, you could also just call it with Eli, but then you're taking a risk of not finding it. So the best way is to put it into your soul if you have a Jamil in your hand, or keep another copy in your hand as much as you can. What does he do? For a Counterblast, he will Soul Charge for every 2 cards you have in your damage zone, and he will get a 2k for every card you have in your damage zone. So if you have 2, he gets 4, and you Soul Charge 1. You only need to be on grade 3 for this ability, and you need to attack a Vanguard. There is no reason like, As long as you have a Vanguard with Bruce in the card name, you're good to go. Now, then the second ability comes in. As long as you have soul charged something, you could call something from your soul up to the amount of cards you soul charged, which are a maximum of 2, because you could not be on 6 damage. You could be on 4 or 5. 5 is the optimal play because he gets a 10k, but 4 is fine as well. So what does happen there is that you will soul charge 1 for every 2. So if you have 2, soul charge 1. If you have 4, you soul charge 2. And then he could call 1 or 2 depending on the amount of your soul charge. And he calls from your soul, so it's not the card you soul charge. No, he just calls from your soul. So yeah, it's a very strong card that could give you a field, a new column. It's also a card that you use with Orlando to create the 7 attack combo, which again we will showcase in another video. Great twos. Gino for Jamil for Eli for. Alright, so there are different ways to build your grade 2 lineup, but we will talk about all of them. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about Gino. Gino is a very important key piece in this deck, but the funny thing is that you don't need to play 4 right away. You could also just play 3 if you want to. You're taking a risk, but you're adding other cards in the deck that could help as well. So what does Gino do? Gino has 2 abilities. The first ability is when your Vanguard attacks, if you are in Final Burst, you could Soul Blast 2, and then you could restand a card in his column for every 2 cards you have in your damage zone. So if you have 2, you restand 1. If you have 4, you restand 2. You're seeing a pattern, right? It's the same as Julian. You get the most out of it if you are on 4 damage. So it's kind of a limit break for deck in some situations. If you restood 2, then they get 5k. So then it's very close to your Bruce's skill. So you can, actually you have 2 Bruce's skill on the field, which you mean you could restand 2 columns. You need to be in Final Burst, so you could not do it if you could go first. But after that, the skill is just active. The second ability is also very, very important. It's the ability that said if he is in front row, at the end of your turn, if you are in Final Rush, not Final Burst, Final Rush, this card goes into your soul, and then you could add a normal unit from your soul back to your hand. It doesn't say a Diabolo's normal unit, so you could add PGs or whatever. But most of the time you'll add your Persona Rights or your PGs. That's it for Gino. Then we go into Jamil. Jamil is another card that's very important, but again, you don't have to play 4 copies of him. So we'll talk later about the other options you could add to your grade 2 lineup, because there are a lot. The first ability of Jamil is if you're on Final Burst, he gets 10k power and 5k shield. So it's a 10k shield and a 10k power that is very good. He's an attacker, but he's also a caller. His second ability said if you have a Vanguard, which is Diabolos, Viamance Bruce, so it needs to be your grade 3, then you could call +1 when this unit is called or placed on the rearguard circle, doesn't say from hand or whatever, or during the battle phase or whatever. Whenever he's placed, the skill is active right away. So you count +1, you soul charge 1, and you call a card from your soul to a open rearguard circle. Open rearguard circle. So it means that even if he is called during the battle phase, he could not create a new attack. And even if he did, that would still not work, because it would mean that's something that's attacking that called him, so he will call on top of an attacker. But anyways, he didn't, or Bushido didn't want to make him a attack extender, so he could not call on a not open rearguard circle. Occupied rearguard circle. So yeah, that ability is very good. It helps you to rush in the early game without losing anything, and sometimes you could just call Heinz, and Heinz could give you the counter charge again when it dies. So it's kind of a free call, and the soul charge is nice. So yeah. The shield and the power is nice as well. Then we have Eli. He is your playmaker, Diabolo's playmaker Eli. He doesn't do anything to the combo, but he is the one that helps to add to the consistency of the deck. He is your energy charge eating boy. He eats as much energies as he wants for lunch, breakfast, and sometimes dinner as well. Alright, so what is his ability? When this unit is placed, not during the battle phase. So this is very, very important. So he could call in the battle phase, he could not call in the battle phase. He could only call on open regular circles, he could call on whatever regular circles, even the one he's on. So again, this deck has here and there a few hidden thingies that you have to read very well, otherwise it would be very easy to misplay. So read the cards correctly or watch these videos and don't make stupid mistakes that makes the game unfair, or just some of them are unreversible, so just don't do that. So what happens here is when he's called, not during the battle phase, you energy blast 3, then you look at the top 7 cards of your deck, you add 2 or you select 2 Diaboloses, normal units from among them. Again, so much restrictions. They need to be Diaboloses, they need to be normal units. Sure. And then you also need to be a Diabolos Vanguard for the ability, so yeah, whatever. And then you call one of them to the field and you put the other one into your soul. The one you call into the field needs to be the same grade as your Vanguard or less. He could call himself. So if you have 6 energies to burn, you could call an Eli. The Eli would search an Eli and something else. You put that something else into your soul, a Geno or a Persona Ride or whatever. And then the second Eli will come to the field. Again, you activate the ability to energy blast 3 more, and then it goes on and on and on. As long as you have energies and you have Eli's in your deck or in the top 7, you could do that. It's the smart thing to do, of course, because you are just filtering out your deck. So now we talk about the other options that you could add to the deck and also the cards that you could take out of the deck. First of all, the Eli you will keep at 4. You would not play less. The Jamil, on the other hand, if you want, you could take a card out. And the same goes for Geno. You could take a card out. So your grade 2 lineup for now would look something like this. What are the cards that you could add to the deck if you want to do that? You have a few options. First of all is the Eden. Second is Patrick. Third is Leonard. And then you have other options, but they are not Diaboloses, and I would rather not play those. Which are most of them like your right line fixers, kinda. The ones that you discard, and by doing so you get the ability to Soul Blast 1, and then you could draw a card and put them to the bottom of your deck. But I don't know. I've tested them out and they work well, but if you don't draw them in the early game, they feel kind of out of place. So I would not play those in this deck. There is no reason to. Eden is strange in this deck because he will not be the one that you restand. Geno and Julian are the one that you restand. So that's one of the reasons that Eden is out. Then you have Patrick and you have Leonard. Both of them are very good, but it's definitely depend on the meta that you're in, how and which one you want to play, if you want to play any. In my opinion, the basic build with just the 4-4-4 is the best build because it's the most consistent build. Drawing into multiple Genos is fine, especially in the early game. If you go first, then you could just put them on the field, attack with them. If they die, you could always put them with Heinz into your soul. If they live throughout the next turn, you could add more cards from your soul back to your hand. He's just a good card, and he leaves an empty regular circle in the front row, which is good against lock decks, against retire deck, against whatever decks. So I don't mind the 4 Genos, and I definitely don't mind the 4 Jamil, because Jamil is a good shield on hand, but he also a one card army, as in a field caller. He could just by himself create you a whole new field if you want to, and you have the resources too. So for me, I would definitely play the 4-4-4, but for you guys, you could play any of these two if you want to. You could play them as a 2-off, so you could take 2 off this and either you play 2 Patricks or 2 Leonards. The Patrick is a very interesting card. If you're in Final Burst, he gets plus 10k, the same as Jamil, but he doesn't get shield. And then the second ability, if this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you are in Final Rush, you could Soul Blast 1, and then you could choose a card from your opponent's regards, and you could move it to the Guardian Circle. If you're on Final Burst, you could move 2 to the Guardian Circle for 1 Soul Blast. He is an amazing card. There are a few decks out there that have regards that they really want to keep, and Patrick will just eat them for lunch. He cannot play around the resists, which means that against Baswagra, he is a little bit less effective to take out their good boosters. But they could still take out a Trick Moon or their attackers that they restand in the front row. He could take out a lot of good cards that your opponent has on the field. He does make a big difference if you play him. But do you want to give up consistency to add him as a 2-off in the deck and hope to see him at the right moment? I don't know. For me, it's like pushing it. Getting into the field is sometimes a pain in the butt because Jamil is very easy because he will be your attacker right away, but he's also the one that called something. So if you want to call this, you have to have him on hand or call him on the top of Jamil, or he will be on the other side of Jamil, which could work. That could work, yeah, definitely. They could be the first 2 attackers, 30-30, and then using his skill. He will be the first one, and then they will need to intercept with 2 5s. It works. I mean, I could try it out, but again, for me, the 4-4-4 feels the best. This one will be a meta preference. If there are a lot of decks throughout the meta of the Netherlands BSF, maybe I'll play him. Leonard is a little bit different. He doesn't need Final Burst for his ability, Final Rush is enough. The sad thing about him is he works the best with Viamance Bruce and not Viamance Bruce. So his first ability, if you're on Final Rush, he gets plus 5k, and he could attack all of your opponent's regards in that column. So if he attacks the middle column, he will just attack the Vanguard and the booster behind it, which is against a few decks, it's very effective, especially if this is a unit that you restand for some reason. Then it's even better. So yeah, but he's good as he could attack the back row, very close to Patrick, but he's better in like a Bazagra a match, but they could still guard their back row. I mean, it's not the biggest attacker. He's 15, and with the personalized, it's 25. So yeah, but he's good on the turn that you go first, and you have only Final Rush and no Final Burst. Then his skill is active as well, and sometimes they call something behind the Vanguard, and he could just get rid of that right away. So again, a very good card, but then a meta preference for me. The second ability is when this unit attack hits, you could Soul Charge 1. You have to. It's not a May. You have to Soul Charge 1. And then if your Vanguard is Diabolos, Viamance, or Viamance Bruce, then you could call something out of your soul for everything that you hit with. But it's not in this deck. That's why he's not in the deck. If that was the case with that hit ability, holy hell, this would have been such a good card in this deck. And it's crazy because, yeah, he does call an open record circle, but then again, you could just fill up your field for nothing. For just hitting. But then, yeah, if I would change the deck myself, I would play Patrick, and I would play Patrick at 2. He will be taking a Gino and a Julian out. So that will be that will be the difference. So it's up to you to change it to which one you like the most. For me, I don't know. We will see. Maybe I'll just change the Patrick to just test with the deck a little bit and see how that goes. Now we go to the grid ones. The 2 copies of Nil, he's your shield boy. The 4 copies of Heinz, it or she or he is your counter charger, your big attacker or booster, but also a card that adds cards from your drop zone back to your deck. Next is the copies of Orlando. We play 4, and then we play the 4 PGs. The 4 PGs is because of Geno, because PGs are normal units and you could add them to your hand. Elementaria is not a normal unit. If you soul charge that, you could not add it to the hand. So that's why the 4 PGs. That's a very simple explanation, and I think it's worth it. Next, we have the Nil. Nil is a strange card, as in sometimes it doesn't do what he's supposed to do. His ability is a continuous ability on Guardian Circle. If an attack hits your Vanguard with the Viamance Bruce in its card name, this unit gets plus 15k shield. So as long as you're on grade 3 and you took a damage this turn, this is a 20k shield. That's it. Why is it a strange card? Because sometimes you want to use it in the early game, but you can't because you're not Bruce yet. Sometimes you're on 5 damage. No attack will hit. So yeah. So he is good, but a little bit strange. Next we have Heinz. Heinz is a card that I will keep at 4. It is just too good to take out. Again, a good booster, a good attacker, but also a card that could add cards from the drop zone back to your hand. What is the ability? The ability is an ult ability. When this unit is placed on Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Diabolos in its card name, you could choose a card with Diabolos in its card name from the drop zone. So you could not add PGs back to your soul. And then he gets plus 5k. If your opponent is on grade 3, he gets 10k instead of the 5k. At the end of the turn, you retire this unit. And then the second ability comes in. When this unit is retired from Vanguard by a card ability during your turn, if you are in final rush, you could countercharge 1 if you haven't countercharged this turn. For that, you need to pay a Soul Blast, which is okay, because there are cards that you want to Soul Blast throughout the game. But you also Soul Blast with your Geno, so yeah. Next is the 4 copies of Orlando. There is a reason why we play 4. Again, consistency, but you could take one out. You could take one out and you could play something else, which I will show you later what you could play. Orlando is very good. You need a copy of him in your hand. If you don't have a copy of him in your hand, you could use Eli to get him. I mean, it's okay. The only reason why we would play 4 is in a meta where your opponent could attack your back row or they could retire your back row easily. Is it a meta like that? I don't know. You tell me. So what's his ability? His ability is when this unit is discarded from your hand or put into your soul. If discarded while riding, or if put into your soul from your deck, you Energy Blast 3, which is too much if you ask me. He should have been Energy Blast just 2, but whatever. You Energy Blast 3, and then you call this to the back row open Vanguard circle. He could be behind the Vanguard, he could be behind the Vanguard, he could be behind whatever. And then his second ability is the most important, is that in the back row center, so if he's behind your Vanguard, once per turn at the end of the battle that a Vanguard attacked, you retire 2, if you're in final rush, you retire 2 of your Vanguards, put the balls in the card name, again, very important restriction, not for this deck, but for the Unrivaled deck, and then you choose 1 card from your back row and you move it to the front row, open Vanguard circle. What does that mean? It means he's behind the Vanguard, you have 2 attackers, you attack, you retire the 2, you call something in the front row, then you attack with it again. If it's a Julian, it could create your whole column, which again, I will showcase in the combo video. That's basically his ability. You only need one behind the Vanguard, that's it, you don't need more. He could stay there the whole game, and if your opponent cannot retire it, then it's fine. If they lock it, it's fine. It doesn't matter if you have a fourth one because you could not call on the top of something. But most of the time, if you play in a retire heavy format, then you need to play more. But again, 3 is still okay because you could add them to your soul, you could call him back. Even the Julian could call him if you want to. Alright, so what other cards we could play as great ones? There are a few options. There are a few very good options. The first one we have is Derek. The second we have is Mabel. And then we also have the new Granny. And we have Stephanie. All of them are good. Derek is good, as in sometimes he could be the one that kills the opponent if the opponent wants to keep that 1 PG for that last attack. He's just a pain in the ass, and he also gets the 5k, which makes him a good booster. Not as good as Heinz, but your opponent needs to guard with 2 cards could be effective. So what does he do when you are in Final Rush? This unit gets the red ability, which is a continuous ability. During the battle, this unit boosted while your Vanguard or your opponent would call cards from their hand. They need to call 2 at the same time. And then this unit also gets plus 5k, and he retires himself at the end of the turn. So yeah, he could be the booster that you could call with Julian. But in the most situations, you would rather call Heinz. It gets more power, and it put a card from your drop zone to your soul that you need for next turn. And if you do this, you will lose it. It would retire. You would not countercharge. It's just not needed anymore because Heinz is just better in the long run. So you would not play it. Mabel is a card that I've seen a lot of people play it. I love it, but I don't play it. It's only good for that first turn if you go, or first grade 3 turn, if you go first. Then this would give you an extra drive check. That's it. Later, you want to call Orlando behind the Vanguard. So I feel like it's just unnecessary. It's just costing the Count Blast and everything. I don't know. Then we have 2 very good cards. Diabolos. What is his skill? Defense line. He's a defense line. Beautiful art and a good card. Only thing that I dislike about it, its skill is just strange. He needs to be restood with your Vanguard, but he will never be restood with your Vanguard because he will be the one behind the Geno to make the right numbers. So why is he a card that needs to be restand by your Vanguard ability? Why could it just be an ability of a Diabolos' unit? I don't know. I've tested him. He's just strange. He just fucks up the combo sometimes, or you just don't get the most out of it. But the good thing about him is his second ability. On Rearguard Circle or Guardian Circle, if you are in Final Rush, this unit gets Intercept. If you are in Final Burst, he gets 5k shield. So he's a 10k shield that could intercept from the back row or front row or whatever row. Which again is very, very good. So you could just call it to the field, leave it there, and then guard with it instead of having Heinz that it dies. And this gives you 2 options: to have a counter charge, more power, and a card from your drop zone back to your soul, or you just want an interceptor and a little bit less power, and you keep something on the field. It's up to you. Then we have Stephanie. It's the card that I mostly would add to the deck if I take one Orlando out. I've tested this, and this feels, in my opinion, better, as long as you don't play against a deck that is very good at retiring, I'd say. A deck that has a good field control, but not only over your front row, but also over your back row. Then having the Orlando at 4 is better. But yeah, this feels good as well. What does Stephanie do? Stephanie gives, as long as you're in Final Rush, the unit in front for an extra 5k. And because this deck keeps Fire Rush until the end of your opponent's turn, that 5k will stay. So if you put it behind the Vanguard, which you would not do because you have this behind your Vanguard, but it will give your Vanguard extra 5k. If you're playing it against a deck that will make a difference, then yeah, just do that. But mostly she's good at the turn that you go first. If you go first, then some of your attacks are just 15. And if your opponent hits a trigger, they will be at 20. And with Stephanie, you will hit the 20 on the 20 right away. And she doesn't need to be the one boosting for that ability, because as long as she's there, even if she's rested, you will still get the 5k. So, in my opinion, a very good card that does make a difference in this deck. But what would you take out? You take out the Orlando only in a situation where you feel like it's safe to. But those are the two cards that you could add to the deck. And you have just only one space, so the Stephanie would be a better option. But then again, you could also add him because he just gives you the option to just call an Interceptor for next turn. The Regalia piece, let's talk about this one right away because we have the cup right here. Most people play the cup in this deck. And that's understandable because this deck needs the Persona right to have the strongest attacks. But then again, this deck also needs field to create the right attacks. Especially if you play Stephanie in the deck and you take one Orlando out, then the Fire Regalia piece is better. Discarding it, soul charging it, damage checking it, like I've played the tournament and I had to discard this card like 2 or 3 times throughout the 6 or the 7 rounds. And it felt like a waste. While with this card, you could just remove it from the game and then just get the best out of it. It could be just a one card to call you a whole new field. If you hit like a Jamil or you hit like an Eli and they could create you the field, just easy. If you're missing just that one Orlando, it's good. If you're missing the one Julian, it's good. So yeah, I don't see a reason why not to play it. Especially because, again, you could just discard it and it works. Alright, next one is the Overtrigger. Another debate. Here we go. So, Red OT, or the beautiful version of it, or the Dark State OT, or the other version of it. Red OT is good. Purple is good. Yellow is good. Blue is good. The Crane Elemental is good. Everything is good in this deck. But it all depends on the situation whenever you get it. And the same goes for Red OT. If you get it in the early game, it's an extra draw, or it's another attack. It's the same effect as having a crit. So yeah. This one is crazy. It is good in this deck because your Vanguard doesn't get PG'd that often. Why doesn't your Vanguard get PG'd? It's because you have Regards that are stronger, and then your opponent will be like, yo, I need to keep my PGs for those. And that's why like things like this doesn't work in this deck if you play this OT, because then they would keep the PG for their Vanguards. So yeah. So what does this do? You getting the 10k and a crits the whole game is just insane, because as I said, this deck loves to get the OT to pass. It doesn't work. The OT to pass, it doesn't work in this deck. So having the extra crits on your Vanguard the whole game is actually as devastating as having a restanding Vanguard. Your opponent will be like, nah, or people will be like, nah, D-boy, nah, I don't get it. You don't have a restanding Vanguard. Why do you play this? You should play red OT, you should play blue, but just play red. Red is the best choice. I don't agree. As long as your Vanguard doesn't get PG'd, then I would rather just do them, that 2 damage right away, and just get rid of it, instead of hitting them with 2 attacks right here and then they could do something about it. I don't know. So in my opinion, the best OT to play in this deck, he's always good. It doesn't matter when he came in. Your opponent would not PG your Vanguard in the early game, so the 10k and a crit is good. You could just give the 10k and a crit to the Vanguard and 100 million to the other Vanguard, and you would still do them damage. And I have had 2 situations in the tournament where my opponent just want to pass my Vanguard. And then I just drove check the OT. And then they were like, oh, you got OT. I was like, dude, it's just the same as hitting a crit. You want to pass my Vanguard. Want to pass my Vanguard. What do you expect in a deck that filters so much? So yeah, red OT, good. Dark State OT, better. Now we go to the other triggers. We play crits, lots of crits. You want to play the Diabolos' crit, it does make a difference. And she is just an amazing crit. My favorite crits in the game next to Liar Lips. Then you could play 3 other beautiful crits or 4. You could take a draw out, but I like it like this. We have different options to play, different arts. I love these. Again, this one is the one that me and Sparkles play. This is the one that I got from Sparkles, and they have almost the same colors. And this is the one that fits this deck the most. There are a lot of other crits that we could play. I have a lot of options that I could add to the deck, especially the Happy Worlds ones, which I like on the art the most. But I decided to play these 3 as in they fit together. There's this one that I also find very fun to play, but I have a little bit of a bad memory with this guy because of warts in the... There's also her, you could play her as well. She also fits. I think if I would play the 4 crits and take 1 draw out, then this is the one that I would play. They kind of fit, and they are kind of sisters because they have the same last name. So you could do that, take out a draw, and again, this would be the one I play. But for now, I'm playing the 4 draws. It does feel better, especially if you damage check a draw. So. Now the draws, these are the same colors as the crits. One of the reasons why we play the crits, the beautiful arts, and they're borderless, which fits with the theme of the triggers, because all the triggers are borderless except the OT. For Oriana is your heal. There is no reason to play effect heal in my opinion. This is just always good in the early game, and it's an amazing card. So it Diaboloses as well. Alright, that's kinda it. We talked about everything, we explained everything. There is 2 or 3 more things to talk about in this deck. First one is a combo video, but I could just do going first and going second videos. And yeah, there's nothing to do more than that. So guys, make the decks, make this deck, enjoy it, have fun with it, change it to the way that you like, and let me know how it goes. But I think that the deck needs a little bit more love, especially from the Diabolos's mains or Diabolos's people that loves to play this archetype. No reason to play anything else. No reason to pick up a meta deck and play it. This is as good or even better. So that's my opinion. Enjoy, have fun, and build the deck, and we'll see you in the next video. So Sil, next time.
Rising